Hey guys, today I'm talking about starting your sweet potato slips, and the best time I think to start sweet potato slips is the beginning of winter. It gives you plenty of time to get your slips as large as possible and have them growing. But I'm going to talk about some alternate ways of doing that and what to do once your sweet potato slips become a little bit larger like these. So these have been growing in my kitchen window, and they haven't had a lot of light because that particular window is shaded, but you can see they've still done quite well, and they've grown over about 3 to 4 weeks. They've just went crazy in that window. I've changed out the water 2 to 3 times in that month's period. So I haven't been as diligent as I probably should have about changing the water. And that's one thing to remember, is you don't want the water to become stagnant or cloudy. Now, each one of these potatoes you see were all started from just standard grocery store sweet potatoes. They were organic, so I avoided getting any that did not say organic on it. I've got a couple of Japanese sweet potatoes that are purple sweet potatoes, but these are just the ones you see growing most often in America, is just the standard sweet potatoes. So guys, sweet potatoes technically are not a true potato. They're actually the tuber of the morning glory vine, and they've just always been called a sweet potato. They look a lot like a potato, but they're actually a tuber, and they grow extremely well where I'm at in zone 7A. So I will highly encourage you to follow this method I'm going to do. It will allow you to have massive amounts of sweet potatoes, or just the morning glory tuber. Now, sweet potatoes are easily damaged by frost. Anything below 40 degrees, you're in danger of them being damaged. So you're going to want to use this method going in and out of a heated area, or even a non-heated basement, but it just has to make sure that it's protected from the frost when it comes through your area. And you can do this going back and forth. As long as you don't have a day during the day that slips below 40, you should be all right. But just remember to bring them inside each evening once those temperatures start to drop. Now, there's two basic ways to start your sweet potato, and one is in a glass like this. And if the glass is too large, the opening, you'll need to put in some kind of toothpicks. I use bamboo barbecue skewers in this one because that's just what I had handy, and sometimes toothpicks are a little small. So this is the way I've done it with this smaller potato. This larger potato is so large it will not slip into the water, and so it can rest comfortably around the rim of the water glass. The second way to do this is to put them in a tray, fill it halfway up with potting soil, a really good well-draining potting soil. Put the sweet potatoes on their sides and allow the tubers to come up, allow the vines to come up from the tubers. But I prefer using the glass method, as I think it's more interesting and you can see exactly what's happening, and you're going to be breaking the sweet potato tubers off relatively soon, in anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how much light they get. Now, if you do opt to start them in a tray, you want to make sure you start them with a humidity dome. Once your slips start to form, you can remove it, but you want to open it maybe once a day and let some fresh air in. But this is a great way to keep the humidity high as those slips start to form. Now, if you're starting your slips in an area that has really stagnant air and there's not good airflow, you want to use a fan and a timer. And this timer right here will allow cutting on and off every 30 minutes. I'll probably run this fan 4 or 5 hours a day to keep the air circulating in the area where the slips are forming. So just remember a good timer, and I'll link one down below. But this will save you a lot of headaches and stop the tubers from having any issues with mold that could occur. Now, all the slips I've started from my sweet potatoes were started in an area inside my house in the kitchen where there's good heat and good air circulation. But also, if you're doing this in a garage and unheated greenhouse, you're going to want a good heat mat to sit under there to allow some nice gentle heat, and that will speed the process up as well. Now, all of these sweet potatoes were started about the same time, but this one has done exceptionally better. And the reason is this was an older sweet potato that had been in a pantry in a small bin, and it had gotten quite a bit older than the other sweet potatoes that were purchased new. But this one got a head start because it was older, and that's why it's produced such great slips. So each slip that you're growing, you'll notice it can have very small nodes, and I'm hoping you can see this on camera. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. But there are nodes right here, and this itself will form all new root systems, and you can cut the entire vine into smaller sections and have a lot more sweet potato plants growing from just one vine. So you can do that and have tons and tons of sweet potatoes growing from just one potato and the slips that it creates. Now, this is a little bit better view of the nodes I'm talking about, and those can be put into the soil, or you can put them into a glass of water, and they themselves will form roots, and I'm going to show you that as well. But one potato can produce massive amounts of new potatoes in one season. Now the large potato I'd shown you, that's actually the second set of slips is formed. Here is the original set that I've taken off and I've allowed them to grow in water. These are ready to go on to the next step, but as you can see, these have all formed their own root system. Now technically you don't have to put them in a glass of water. You can put them directly in soil, but I like taking this extra step so I can make sure that I know which slip is working properly, and I can go on and have it in a pot where I know there's no chance of failure when it's got that much root system growing beneath it. Now I've just broken off this sweet potato slip on one of the largest potatoes I had growing. This itself can be broken down into 3 different sweet potato plants. I'm going to take each one and make sure there's at least 1 or 2 leaves, and then cut that section where it can form a whole new system of roots, and I'm just going to cut it into 3 right below the nodes, and so we'll have 3 plants growing from that 1 slip that we just removed from the potato. For me, I'm going to set these in water and allow them to develop roots before I go on to the next step. Now I want to show you how quickly these can develop roots. These have only been in this glass for about a week, and they have really put out a lot of roots in a short amount of time. As you can see, there will not be any guesswork in whether or not these will survive because they've got a great root system growing, and even the smaller cuttings are showing a lot of roots. As you can see, that is a great way to do it because you know that you can proceed to the next step without any guesswork as to whether or not they're going to survive in the soil. If you're in springtime, you can put these directly into the ground outside if there's not a chance of any temperature dropping below 40 degrees. But I'm just starting my winter, so I want to put these in a large container so they'll have all winter long to get much larger, and when they are transplanted to the garden or a larger container, they will be really ahead of other sweet potatoes that I've started in past years in the springtime, which it meant that I was 3 or 4 months behind where I would normally be, and I would have to wait for those tubers to develop. Now you want to plant these cuttings, if you are in springtime and you're going to do this directly outside, you want to do it in the evening or on a cloudy day, and you want to make sure that they remain moist because they will dry out very quickly. And if you have not allowed a root system to develop, that will happen even faster. So that's one of the benefits of allowing a root system to develop before you put it into the soil. There's less chance of the slip drying out. Another note on planting these directly into your garden, you want to plant them about 12 to 18 inches apart because sweet potato slips do spread out quickly, and I always recommend growing them vertically and keeping them pruned back so they can put that energy into the tubers rather than creating more and more leaves. So that's a really key component to larger sweet potatoes, is keeping the foliage pruned back a little bit so it can put that energy down below the ground. Now this potato is actually on his second set of slips. This was the first set of slips, and just remember, once you remove the slips, place it back in your water and it will start generating a second growth of slips. One of the main reasons I encourage everyone to start their sweet potatoes in the late fall, early winter is going to take 6 to 9 months to go from slip to mature potato. So once you do this earlier in the year, you'll realize that it is the best way to start your sweet potatoes because it's going to allow your sweet potato harvesting to be much larger, much more productive, and occur even a little bit earlier in the year. Now, another way to get your sweet potatoes to produce their slips even faster and more vigorously is to do a bone meal soak. Take 1 teaspoon of bone meal and fill a container like this up with water, mix it well, and allow your sweet potato to rest in it for about 30 minutes to an hour, and that will be just a little bit of absorption into the skin of the potato, which will start that process faster and more vigorously, as the sweet potato has phosphorus, and that's what these tubers need to create more slips and more roots. Now you can also start your slips in vermiculite as well as the potting soil. This will retain moisture and allow drainage at the same time. So if you have vermiculite, you can do a little experimenting, but I think the potting soil tends to work better, but maybe a mix of 50-50 vermiculite and potting soil will give that perfect balance. I haven't done it yet, but I've done some reading that says vermiculite really aids in that slip production. So I'm going to try that next year. As I've got so many slips going right now, I don't even think I can plant them all. Now I recommend using these fabric grow bags as opposed to a 5-gallon bucket because they can be stored away so easy once you're through with them, and they'll last for quite a long time, and they drain perfectly. The 5-gallon buckets I've found, yes, I can get them at Firehouse Subs for about $3, but at the big box stores they're anywhere from $5 to $7. So I just recommend these because they are so incredibly cheap. I'm going to fill this with a homemade potting soil, and I'll link that up above exactly how to make your own premium potting soil. So the first step in planting the slips is I'm going to remove some of the lower leaves and leave 2 or 3 leaves at the top. And we're not going to leave them in this grow bag indefinitely. I'm just allowing them to grow larger in this bag. And so I'm just going to make sure that none of them have too many leaves on them, and put them in this container. And I'm removing some of the larger leaves so they don't dehydrate so quickly. And I'm just going to spread them out around this, and they should develop quite quickly. I'm going to keep it watered. I'm also going to put in a plastic container as a drip tray. These are like less than $1 at the big box store, and it just prevents the container from draining all over the floor. Again, I'm removing some of the larger lower leaves and leaving, of course, the root system in place. And I'm just going to put this a little bit deeper into our grow bag. And these grow bags worked really great for starting sweet potato slips. So there you go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We started in this one bag, and of course, once these get larger, they'll be moved to their own individual container. I also recommend putting in a dusting of worm castings, and that's going to help speed up the microbial growth and allow the sweet potato slips to grow even faster. So I always recommend getting a bag of that. I'll link it down below, as well as the grow bags. And it's really a great way to get your sweet potato slips off to an early start by using the worm castings. So guys, once you get your sweet potatoes planted in whatever you want to plant it in, whether it's a grow bag or a 5-gallon bucket, you want to give it a very light dusting of the bone meal, and that's going to continue to help with root development and growth of those tubers in these bags or 5-gallon buckets, whichever you chose. So guys, a final really important thing to remember is you cannot allow these to get below 40 degrees because it will damage the sweet potatoes. So if you're growing them in an unheated garage or greenhouse, you want to monitor that temperature very carefully. If you're letting them go outside and back inside, you want to do the same. You can put an app on your phone that'll give you a frost or freeze warning, but even at that level, you're still in danger even a few degrees above that. So just remember, you want to make sure that you're allowing them in and out of that area to allow them to have some sunlight each day, and make sure you keep the slips watered because they will dehydrate very quickly. So guys, I just want to say thanks so much for watching. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope if you like sweet potatoes like I do, you'll consider starting them in the late fall, early winter, so you'll be way ahead of the game once it's time to harvest, and you'll have a lot larger harvest with larger individual potatoes. So guys, have a great day, and I really appreciate you watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you found something helpful.